Hello everyone and welcome to part 16 of my 18-part video series where I'll be reading from my autobiography, Odd Man Out, True Stories of a Gay Black Swimmer. Over the past week I had a new subscriber, so welcome, and to all of you who have also found my video for the first time in the past few days, welcome as well. Hope you have been able to watch from the very beginning. If you haven't, it's okay. Stop the video here, go down to the description box, and you'll see a link to get to part 1. And I invite you to start with part 1 and work your way up to now, part 16. And so you'll have a better idea of what my life is like. And so you're not coming in at the middle or I guess at the end of the series. What I'm doing here, for those of you who don't know, I am just reading passages from my book, just to give you an idea of the message that I have in my book and a little bit about my life, and hopefully that will entice you to want to buy your own copy. If you want to get a signed copy, you can click the link in the description box that's right below here. As some of you have realized, there are other places to buy it, and I am very grateful that you're buying it wherever you're buying it. So let's get to today's reading, and it comes from chapter 15. A little backstory. A few editions ago, I had talked about going to gay games where I had met a man named Jeff before one of my races. And this talks about a time 2 years later where we would actually spend a weekend together. Jeff and I made plans to spend Saturday in Denver. We would hang out at Elish Gardens, an amusement park owned by Six Flags, then eat a great dinner and spend the night in a nice hotel before returning to Fort Collins the next morning. It was mid-June in Colorado, so I wasn't surprised that the temperature only topped out at 70 degrees that day. But it did hamper my mood. Jeff and I were enjoying the day at the but it didn't hamper my mood, sorry. Jeff and I were enjoying the day at the amusement park, and I was glad to spend time talking to him while waiting in lines. We planned to leave the park around 5 p.m., and one of our last rides was the Sea Dragon, a makeshift pirate ship that swings back and forth. Jeff and I sat on one end of the ship, having an entire row to ourselves. As we waited for the attendant to check that all restraints were secure, I looked at Jeff and, without thinking, grabbed his hand and squeezed it hard. Not out of anticipation of the thrills the ride would provide, but out of happiness that I might have found the man I wanted to live with forever. The gesture wasn't planned. In fact, the sudden grab of his hand shocked me a little. The look of pure joy on his face made me feel happier that I made the gesture. Could I possibly be falling in love with Jeff already? I had wanted to feel this way since I was in my early 20s, so the desire had been building up in me for a decade. Jeff continued to woo me that evening by getting a room in the Westin Hotel in downtown Denver and romanced me more with a great dinner at Wolfgang Puck's restaurant not too far from the hotel. That night we went to the hotel roof to enjoy the hot tub there. As we walked from our room to the elevator, Jeff took my hand and held it as we waited for the elevator and as we rode the elevator up to the roof. We had both made fairly serious romantic gestures in the span of about 4 hours. This was getting serious quickly, and I liked it. The next morning we drove back to Fort Collins. I planned to get in my car and drive back to Albuquerque no later than 2 p.m. At 4 p.m., I was lying in bed with Jeff trying to convince myself and him that my departure was not the end of our communication. The hardest part was not knowing when we would be able to physically be together again. The act of walking to my car remains one of the most difficult things I had to do in my life. About 6 times between Fort Collins and Castle Rock, about 100 miles apart, I entertained the notion of turning around for one more night with Jeff. I'd call work and make up something. Being apart from Jeff physically hurt. And all my relationships, well, all 3 of them, had never physically ached to be apart from the man I was dating. So there you go. That's a passage from part 15 of my autobiography, Odd Man Out, True Stories of a Gay Black Swimmer. Thanks again to everyone who's watched today, and thank you for everyone again who has subscribed, who has commented, who has written me messages on Facebook, who have told me in person about this series. Obviously, there are just 2 more to go. So sad it's coming to an end. I just didn't, you look when you're doing chapter 1, you look far ahead. You don't think you're going to ever get to chapter 18, and we're almost there. So again, thanks to everyone, and I'll see you next time.